We're going to the next round, and we're going to move our program along a little faster. We're going to give each candidate 1 minute to respond. And our first question in this section will be going to Councilwoman Cantrell. There are only 2 Fortune 500 companies in our state, Monroe-based CenturyLink and Entergy New Orleans. How would you recruit more? And how would you work with surrounding parishes to make the region as a whole a better attraction for big business?
Sure. You know what? I'm very excited about our governor, who's taken a different approach as it relates to our industrial tax. And that is what is used to incentivize development in our state. And so even with working with the business community and even local clergy that are organizing around this issue for New Orleans to get our fair share, but even thinking regionally, because when growth happens outside of our parish, we win too, but we have to connect our people to that growth and opportunity, and that's where the transportation options come in. But incentivizing development has to happen in addition to how we incentivize it locally. Currently, our process is too politicized. There are not clear guidelines that exist to the development community to say, if you want to take a risk in our city, what is it? What is it that the city would have to offer? That has to be clear. And so I have been very instrumental at getting development spurred in the city of New Orleans and will do so as mayor.
All right, thank you very much. Judge Charbonnet.
I've already started talking to certain businesses about even just going to New Orleans East, right? I talked with a gentleman who owns 20 restaurants in the French Quarter, and I also spoke with a big, large grocer in our city. I said, what would it take for you to put a grocery store in New Orleans East or the Lower Ninth Ward? The crime's too bad, Desiree. I said, what if I give you incentives? The crime's too bad, Desiree. Same thing with the restaurant owner. The crime. I could incentivize all day, but the crime is a big hindrance. I've got to bring us back to that. When I go out to get business for this city, which I plan to do, I've got to be able to say it's a safe place to come. It's key. It's huge. I also do have to be able to say that I have a workforce that's ready to work for you, particularly in the emerging sectors right now. And the good thing that we should know is that 50% of the jobs that are needed are middle skill jobs, which means you need a high school diploma, but you don't need a 4-year degree. So you need a little more than a high school diploma. That's in so many areas that I can't talk about further.
All right, Judge Bagneris.
We have to attack challenges simultaneously. Of course, we have to reduce crime in order to have it be an attractive environment for business. But if we wait until we have a big reduction in crime to get business here, we have an awful long wait. I would immediately go after businesses, and in terms of going after businesses, we are missing the boat by not paying attention to our port. Our port is there that brings in products that doesn't have any add-on value. We are the #1 importer of rubber. Where's our tire manufacturer? We get large quantities of lumber from South America. Where's our furniture manufacturer? You know, that little cocoa nut that I'm always talking about that comes across to the continent of Africa, from the continent of Africa. We don't have nearly enough chocolate being made, and everyone knows I love chocolate. So we don't have anything in terms of add-on value. That's where we'll get our businesses.
All right, and we've talked a little bit already about New Orleans East. This question is specifically about that part of our city. Many New Orleans East residents feel disassociated from the rest of the city. They say they don't have enough resources or businesses, and they often spend their money across the lake in Slidell. There was even a movement recently to secede from the city. What do you say to the residents watching there tonight, and how would you revitalize that area? So, Judge Charbonnet, you touched on it a little bit. I would ask you to delve a little deeper into your answer.
Well, New Orleans East has been neglected, and that's obvious. As I said, I talked to a restaurateur who won't even bring one white tablecloth restaurant to New Orleans East because of the crime. We have to we have to remember this. We remember New Orleans East a certain way. I remember going to New Orleans East as a teenager to hang out in the plaza. The plaza is no more. And we will probably not have a mall such as the plaza. But what we need in New Orleans East is a city center. We need somewhere around Reed Boulevard where people are drawn to for shopping and restaurants and businesses as well. It will draw people from different sectors of New Orleans East where we all come together. That is sorely missing. Now, how I'm going to do that? New markets tax credits. It's federal funds that the city has yet to go after to help develop the city for government purposes. There's the city of St. Louis took advantage of, $331 million of tax credits with that program. It is a substantial tax credit. For a $150 million project, the credits come to about $50 million, so substantial, almost a third.
Mm-hmm. Judge Bagneris, what would you do with New Orleans East?
First, we have to recognize that New Orleans East is one of the few places in the city that we can grow. We being the city of New Orleans, needs its eastern part. You know, and New Orleans East has been treated like a stepchild. So what we will do is when we talk about some of those manufacturers that we're going to recruit to come into the city, New Orleans East is one of the few places where there's enough land mass for us to deal with that type of expansion for the improvement, economic improvement. Now, I've already committed to the East that in my first 100 days, I'm going to find out why we haven't revitalized Lincoln Beach. If you bring a beach there, you're going to have a boutique hotel, you're going to have restaurants, you're going to have retail outlets, you're going to have business. You know, we got to stop talking about it and start doing. Yeah. That's what a Bagneris administration will accomplish.
Judge, thank you. Councilwoman.
Sure, I would do what I've demonstrated that I've been able to do at the grassroots level, neighborhood level, and city council level. First of all, for New Orleans East, I would expropriate key parcels off of that I-10 that I know are prime real estate and ready, just like the Grand Theater, for example. I would use that as a tax incentive to then spur redevelopment and growth. Creating that town center, moving some of our departments from City Hall, even activating that space, commercial, retail, you name it. I would get the trash out of our people's eyes. Green and clean, perceptions matter. Ingress, egress, as you enter or exit that interstate, it matters. Cleaning up even the interstate. We have to get the trash out of our people's eyes. We have to show them hope and real opportunity. The East is primed for it. It just needs to be a priority. It's not rocket science, and we can do this. Lincoln Beach is really ready to go right now. It's just a matter of activating those incentives, again, being clear about them, using them as that attraction, and we can make it happen in New Orleans East. Our people deserve it.
All right, sounds like there's some consensus among you. Thank you. Yeah. The next question, Mayor Mitch Landrieu is about to wrap up an 8-year term. What would you say has been his greatest accomplishment, and what would you say has been his worst failure? We'll start with Judge Bagneris.
His greatest accomplishment, getting a handle on the budget. I think that he was able to not only get a handle on a budget, but obviously improve the city's rating among the bonding companies. That's his greatest accomplishment. His greatest failure, that's an easy one, public safety. Dropping the ball on public safety, placing a moratorium when he got into office on the hiring of police. I truly believe that the crime rate has increased again because police manpower decreased, and I put that on his shoulders.
All right, thank you very much. Councilman Cantrell.
I would say one of the greatest, or we said, things that the mayor has done is really keep alive the public-private partnerships that were started immediately post-Katrina. And me being in the trenches, you know, on the ground, developing those partnerships, whether it was Ford, Rockefeller, Carnegie, you name it. Many of those partnerships have continued to grow and therefore spur the redevelopment of our city. So I want to make sure that we maintain those partnerships moving forward because they're critical. In terms of issue, in terms of his leadership, I would say being very divisive. Not working well across lines with people. I've been on the New Orleans City Council. I've always felt like it was a divide and conquer type of attitude and spirit, and the processes that really do help build you up and build community up and build people have been more that divided spirit.
All right, thanks very much.
Go on.
Judge Charbonnet, though, it's her turn now. Judge Charbonnet.
I think he has made significant strides in making City Hall more user-friendly. Now, my plans take it many steps further in terms of implementing more technology at City Hall, but I do think that it has been a little easier to work with City Hall. I would say his biggest failure is his presidency of the Sewerage and Water Board, not demanding accountability and transparency as we saw unfortunately, right after August 5th flood.
All right, thank you very much. This next question actually comes from our partners at the Committee for a Better New Orleans. Water management and coastal restoration is already one of the fastest growing economic sectors in Southeast Louisiana. The city and the region have the potential to be the national leader in this sector. What will you do to advance the so-called green infrastructure economic sector? Councilman Cantrell.
Well, one, I really do want to incentivize energy efficiency that really leads to and is aligned with renewable energy. And that's something that, that we have an opportunity to grow. In regards to, again, stormwater management practices, fully implementing the urban water plan for our city. We've demonstrated that we are leaders in this. And it started really at the community level when government was nowhere to be found, like the bioswale that we happen to have at Keller Library that collects over 50 gallons of water every rain cycle, or at Wilson School collecting over 90 gallons of water during any rain cycle. So it would be incentivizing future development, but implementing the stormwater management plan and urban water management plan. Of course, improving Sewerage and Water Board, filling those 350 vacant positions that we currently have now. All of these are tied, ensuring that the Department, even of Public Works, is prepared in a way to manage and implement the stormwater management plan.
All right. What would you do, Judge Charbonnet, to advance the green infrastructure economic sector?
Well, first of all, I'd bring in the experts that can tell us exactly the best uses for water here. Stormwater management is an emerging industry, in fact. One of the things we have to do is understand that as we pump water to the lake, as we've done for years and years and years, we've got to start looking at other ways of handling stormwater, permeable soil and permeable pavements, knowing that at some point we're going to have to start filling up some of the parks as an option to hold some water. We've seen it done in Jefferson Parish.
Exactly.
It works very well. So we've got to also encourage our residents to start taking advantage of that opportunity. We can collect stormwater in barrels if we give every resident, we give them the tools. I think it's much easier to encourage it if we bring them to them and then let them see the benefits of it. You could use it for various things, watering your garden, you save that water, washing your car, things of that nature. So there's ways for us to manage water in a more modern way that could pay off big time.
All right, Judge, your thoughts.
We have an award-winning plan already. It was developed in 2014. It's been collecting dust. In fact, it even received $140 million FEMA dollars that weren't utilized in order to execute that particular plan. The plan dealt with everything. It dealt with retention ponds, water gardens, rain systems, even told us where we should look to place them. What have we done with it? Nothing. We need to make use of the funds that we get, particularly the federal funds. Otherwise, we're going to be shipping it back to the federal government. That won't happen in my administration. So again, we have to stop talking. We've done the planning. Let's execute.
All right, and that's round two. Round three is going to be interesting. I'm going to get to take a little bit of a break here. Our next round, we're going to have the candidates ask questions of each other. The candidate asking the question has been told to limit the question to 30 seconds. The other candidate will have 90 seconds to respond to it, and then we'll also allow time for a response from the candidate who asked the question if he or she would like it. So we're going to begin with Judge Bagneris asking a question of Councilwoman Cantrell.
My good friend Latoya. Obviously, the city of New Orleans still has a great deal of blight. I'm interested in knowing why you are proposing taking money from code enforcement and putting it into subsidized housing in every neighborhood in New Orleans, including New Orleans East and Lakefront, which are vehemently opposed to additional dense housing.
Okay, so I have not proposed taking money from code enforcement. Actually, on my tenure on the New Orleans City Council, it's been putting more money into code enforcement because the city has been inadequate with enforcing the rules and laws that are currently on the books. I was the one who reformed the Housing Trust Fund that the city of New Orleans has when I found that it was going to pay an attorney in code enforcement to be punitive to our people instead of helping to stabilize their areas and their neighborhoods, creating the balance so that they can stay in their homes, provide them with gap financing options, soft seconds for home ownership options. But my plan has never been to take anything away from code enforcement because I've demonstrated it's been about putting more resources into code enforcement because enforcement has to improve in our city. Period.
Judge Bagneris, would you like your 30 seconds?
So the newspaper articles that indicated that we stood a chance of losing the $7.2 million because of your support of taking monies from the code enforcement and putting it into housing development was in error?
Code enforcement, $7.2 million, sir, and you're referencing a newspaper article, but I'm referencing my work on the New Orleans City Council and managing budgets for over 5 years and passing and pushing not only for reform measures but additional resources so that we can be a more effective government.
All right. Councilwoman, this is your opportunity to ask a question of Judge Charbonnet.
Okay. Judge Charbonnet, or ma'am. I know that you previously served as the recorder of mortgages, which was pre-Katrina. And, you know, I've led a community through recovery, did extensive case management, working with homeowners who pretty much got screwed in many ways, not only by Road Home, but even insurance companies that were forcing them to pay off their mortgages. I'm just wondering why, when we called upon you and your office to stand tall and firm and fight for our residents who were pretty much having their money redirected from rebuilding their homes, but redirected to paying off their mortgages.
I don't remember ever getting a call from you or anybody from the city council for me to stand tall and not cancel mortgages. I have an obligation. When you accept any public office, you take an oath and you're going to follow the rules. If I'm presented with a mortgage cancellation, I have an obligation to record it and cancel the mortgage. That is what I'm required to do. So I don't remember anybody calling and saying that there was some cause or some anything like that that was an issue with that back then. And as a matter of fact, I'm glad you asked that. I was not pre-Katrina, I was during Katrina, and I did recover the books, and I did reopen in the convention center within 6 weeks of the storm. The fastest office to reopen any public office in this town.
Okay, well, that was 6 weeks after Katrina, but as you know, the recovery of our homes post-Katrina and the resources that were allocated were inadequate. And yes, ma'am, I was not a city councilwoman. I was a community and executive director of a neighborhood where very extensively many of our residents were forced to pay off their mortgages. And so expecting elected leaders to stand up, even when it's outside of your scope of leadership, is actually, in my opinion, when you begin to exercise it.
That's
Thank you.
You don't understand the law.
Thank
All right,
you.
let's move on. Judge Charbonnet, this is your opportunity to ask a question of Judge Bagneris.
Right. Judge Bagneris, or Michael, it's well known that you have been presented and rejected twice by the Obama administration for a federal judgeship. We know there's extensive background checks that go with that. What does the FBI know that the citizens of New Orleans need to know about you?
Great question. And it was only once that I was rejected. I was only considered once for a federal judgeship. And the reason that we did not get the federal judgeship is because, like so many politicians, and President Obama is definitely the ultimate politician, there was an opportunity for him to appoint the first black female in the Eastern District. He took the opportunity to make history and appoint the first black female. I did not stand, I did not fight for that. And that was the only reason, because as we all know, if there was any negative, this station and every other station would have been pouncing upon me in terms of whatever that negative was. There was no negative. It was a question of his making history, and that's it.
Okay. So nothing to do with any kind of tax liens or anything?
Absolutely zero.
Okay.
All right, now we've got Judge Bagneris asking a question of Judge Charbonnet.
Judge Charbonnet. Desi.
Yes, sir.
All right. When you were serving as a municipal court judge, Senator Troy Brown came before you. And, well, take that back. Senator Troy Brown was scheduled to come before you. You violated court policy and went ahead and released him without requiring him to be present. Why did you do that?
You really don't understand municipal court or the criminal justice system for that matter. Senator Troy Brown went before a hearing officer, a magistrate judge from the municipal court. Before he ever walked out of court, he was given a bond and he signed a protective order that was registered with the Protective Order Registry. The only time after that he was released pursuant to a bond on a domestic abuse violence charge. What's interesting is that at one point you like to minimize the types of charges that come to municipal court, but now you're outraged that this man walked out. You've got to decide whether you think municipal court deals with serious cases or not. The point is, he saw a judge, he had a bond, he signed a protective order, and then he was released. His lawyer simply came back the next day to enter a plea of not guilty.
Well, you were quoted in the newspaper and on your record as saying, I generally don't waive appearances when you're talking about someone accused of abuse. Why did you waive the appearance if it wasn't a policy? And if I did not understand, I do understand that your court doesn't handle any felonies.
Do you want a very brief
first
moment?
appearance. He went before a magistrate. This was not the first appearance, and that's exactly what I never waived.
Your quote was, you don't generally waive.
Okay. That's what you say the quote is.
All right,
That
we're
is
going to
the
move
quote.
on.
You don't
Councilwoman.
understand criminal justice.
You don't understand law, period.
Okay, right in
Right.
between, we're going to get to Councilwoman Cantrell. Councilwoman Cantrell, this is your opportunity to ask a question of Judge Bagneris.
Mr. Bagneris, when we had the last live debate, you referenced those participants as suffering from mental illness. I just wanted to know who you were referencing, or where did that come from? Kind of threw me for a loop.
Yeah, that was actually, it wasn't you. Okay. don't get looped out on me. No, the
Who was it?
I'm sorry.
Who was it?
No, it actually wasn't anyone.
Okay.
It was a situation where it was really taken out of context. Anybody who knows my history. In fact, just last week, I met with Dr. Rochelle Durham, and she's got a multi-million-dollar federal grant to deal with mental health patients and those who are have opioid problems. And we were talking about the 5 clinics that she's established here, 3 in Orleans Parish, 2 one in St. Bernard and 1 in Plaquemines. And we were talking about how the city government could help assist her in her treatment.
Mm-hmm.
Ms. Cantrell, would you like to respond to that? You have your 30 seconds.
No, it's fine. Thank you.
Okay, all right. And now we've got Judge Charbonnet asking a final question of Councilwoman Cantrell.
So, Councilmember Cantrell, I know that you look at the Magnolia Marketplace as a huge success, and I know you brag about that development there. But you and I both know that 11% sales tax is actually the highest sales tax in America. And so that extra penny, is that true that was used to help the developers that are particular political friends of yours? Because the extra penny goes somewhere.
Okay. Well, the extra penny on every dollar was something that was created. We did an economic development district that was passed by the New Orleans City Council. I built consensus in the community, those neighborhoods that are surrounding Magnolia Marketplace, that is along Claiborne Avenue. If anyone knows Claiborne Avenue, it really was disinvested in pre-Katrina, and really in that post-Katrina environment has been the opportunity to spur national retail in a part of our community that truly needs it. And so with building those consensus and getting my colleagues to support an addition of 1 cent on the dollar, we were able to bring in national retail, and it is doing wonders to the city of New Orleans, particularly the citizens, because they are there, they're shopping, and you know what? The revenue generated has been so great that we're going to be out of that 1 cent sooner rather than later. The projections on the front end was up to 12 years. Based on the revenue that has been generated in a short period of time, we really look like we can get out of that in 5 to 6 years. This is a good thing. We have national retail on Claiborne Avenue in a community that needed it so desperately.
In one of our poorest communities in this city, they're paying another penny on every purchase. That area desperately needed it, but I do not believe that they should have been the ones to pay. We complain when we have corner stores that charge people 25 cents per cigarette and so much more for bread. So that's just, I still believe that the poorest is having to pay for that.
Well,
Did I hear your original? I'm sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
Okay, well, the facts are this. And maybe you don't understand the need for national retail throughout the city of New Orleans.
I do.
So those who are patronizing, who are going, the customers are coming from the entire city of New Orleans. So it's not just you're saying, oh, the poor. I live there too. I'm on Louisiana Avenue Parkway. So I'm right there.
And
okay.
Judge, was your original question, did any of your friends profit from this
Yes.
1 cent? Did any of your friends profit?
No, I don't have any friends, millionaires. I don't who are tied to this deal. I don't know who you're talking about.
Okay.
Well, if you can name them, we can. You can name them because I don't know who you're talking about actually.
All right.
Okay.
Our next round.